Okay. Okay, we got brother Kweku on the line. Tendamwari, brother Kweku. Welcome to Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan.
Tendamwari,
my brother.
First want to rise up brother Bafo and Koma, and also yourselves for putting together a powerful and informative show. Now, I hear the question you raise is, are we getting the whole story? And it's interesting that we are taking into account the story, the narrative, what the West give, as if they've got any legitimacy to say anything in the affairs of Africans. Yeah? That is showing the mindset where we're at, that we, after going through so much atrocities by these people, are actually looking to them for an opinion of what is going on in the world. Remember that whenever there is an economic downturn, not even downturn, when there's an economic slump, right, the West goes to war. Remember also that when the West go into war, like in Vietnam, there was a ruse where they had their troops put in a secret message, then bomb their own troops, and then blame it on the people, the so-called enemy, the Vietnamese, and then they sent in their troops. When they went to war with Japan in the First World War, they had they knew Pearl Harbor was going to be bombed. They allowed it to happen, but sent their best ships out, but let the rest get bombed. And with Grenada, the rules was there to protect their own school teachers. Yeah, these are the people that is running the world. As Baba brother
Bafo
Ankoma said, that our governments are selected, not elected. And so that brings to mind, when the question you raised earlier said, how effective have ECOWAS and the African Union been in the crisis, we have to ask, what are they there for? They are clearly not for our people. They're not for the interests of African people, because they have stayed silent. They chose to speak about Libya, the AU, but you hear them silent on this issue. And that presents the need. We have to get together, and I'm glad you mentioned the National Black People's, the parliament that's been set up. But it also shows us, once we are together, when we put inside our media what is happening, yeah, the rest of the world would have to take us more serious. At this moment in time, when we're divided, we are going to listen to outside influences for the real opinion.
Right.
And, it just speaks to the state of the race of what Papa Garvey was trying to avoid, and now we are seeing the things unfolding in our eyes. This is the new invasion and the division of Africa right in front of our eyes. You're going to see more and more of this coming on. And you have a butcher like Haig trying to present himself as a humanitarian.
Okay. Brother Tendamwari, give thanks for your contribution. 0208-180-2523 is the number to call. 0208-180-2523. 07-961-573-883 is also a number you can call, and you can email us at studio@voiceofafricaradio.com or text us on 07904-899-195. Okay. Brother Ajay, any additional contributions that you want to make?
Yeah, right now, when it comes to the situation in the Ivory Coast, everybody is focusing on the involvement of the West and how they're trying to impact on the internal affairs of most of the African countries' political situations. I'm African and I'm a Pan-Africanist myself, And in Africa, we say something like, when there is a crack in the wall that gives the opportunity to the spider to come down there and build its nest in there. The reason I'm saying that is what did the African people we did when it appeared in the first place that after the election there is a deadlock that is coming up. What did the global African people did to facilitate a dialogue between the both camps? We did nothing. The ECOWAS did nothing. The ECOWAS always was divided. Some of them wanted, the ECOWAS to act. Some of the leaders said no. Now we went to the AU. What did happen? We couldn't solve our own problem because yet again among African people we start playing politics with the suffering of one part of our own continent.
Brother Ajay,
yes?
We heard earlier on of Brother Thabo Mbeki, the former president of South Africa, who was assigned to mediate in the conflict in Côte d'Ivoire. Fortunately, obviously, other forces kind of took control, but there certainly was an attempt by the AU, and I think Brother Bafo is really broken down who controls the AU budget, etc. So, obviously, you'd be aware of that.
Yeah, I'm aware, but I'm much more concerned of the result, the outcome of those kind of so-called mediation. What was the outcome? Nothing happening.
Right.
Both parties take on their position. Now, but in the same time, the both parties stayed on their positions, and the African people were not able to resolve these issues. On the ground, the ordinary people, were still suffering. The killing, the lack of food, the lack of sanitaries, everything was going down in the Ivory Coast.
Right. Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? So my concern is we went for an election, agreed, all principles of that election was agreed by all parties involved.
That's right.
Now, the people of the Ivory Coast voted for the first time in Africa. We had a face-to-face between two leaders. After that face-to-face for the second round, the people of Ivory Coast actually chose, and they chose somebody.
Hold on, Brother Daniel. We'll be with you shortly, my brother. Sorry, go ahead, Ajay.
Ouattara was declared president. Why Mr. Gbagbo had to take on to power to say, I'm not going nowhere. I've been declared the winner after cutting off more than 60,000 votes from Ivorian. How can you lead a country as a president when you have to cut off more than 60,000 votes?
Okay. Let me bring in Brother Daniel from Peckham, and then maybe Brother Ankoma, Brother Bafor can respond to your concerns, my brother. Brother Daniel.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, my brother. Please, let's hear your contributions this evening.
Yes, it's going to be short and sweet. Yes, you have to understand that the Europeans, they have got Africa in their pockets. We have to be honest with ourselves.
Right. And
that they say the job, they have to say how high, if I'm saying to you. And if you know that the AU, 50% is funded by foreigners, the guys from Europe. So you can see that obviously Africa hasn't really got a mandate for Africans because it's sponsored by foreigners, which is 50% of Europeans. And breaking news, if I go, is that Gbagbo has been captured by Ouattara forces. It's been captured now, so it's in their hands. So it's been captured and it's been protected by the UN.
That's right.
So that's what I got to say, really. They've been captured right now, according to the news.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Give thanks and praises for that. Brother Bafo,
Okay.
If we can just quickly get you to respond. Brother Ajay had some concerns about Gbagbo. You probably heard it.
Yeah, I think the selling point he made is about African mediation and what would. No, I think they mediated early on when the election started. They sent in Mbeki, and because Mbeki's report was not palatable to France and USA, he was sidelined. And then they sent in the Prime Minister of Kenya to go in. Odinga went in and made a fool of himself.
Yes.
They sent in some other 3 African presidents, including Benin, to go in. So they were always sending envoys trying to mediate. What actually went wrong was that because the AU had already pronounced, the Peace and Security Council had pronounced that Ouattara had won, it became difficult for them to retract because everybody they sent in had to reinforce what they had already said way back in November. So that's what actually happened. But it's not for lack of Africa trying to mediate. We sent in mediation group, but we shot ourselves in the leg as early on as a few days after the elections. And it goes back to the AU. I remember I was there when the AU was being formed. They are sent in some council of elders to advise them. And we went in as the media. And where at the time, the Ivorian foreign minister was the last Secretary General of the OAU. And we were telling them we should be able to finance our own affairs. And one of the ways to do it is to put, say, $1 levy on every airline ticket sold in Africa, going in or coming out, so that we'll be able to finance our own affairs. He agreed, but nothing was done. Right. We now have an AU that cannot finance itself. If you look at the contribution of the AU member countries, here that constitutes about 20%. The AU programs are funded 65% by foreigners, mainly the European Union, USA, and some others. So at every AU meeting, these guys send their foreign minister to go and lecture our heads of state. And I hear the last AU meeting, some of the heads of state cannot bear sitting down there and listening to the waffle that this foreign minister from Europe and elsewhere came to tell our leaders. Right. That is why Sarkozy had to fly in from Paris to go and sit in the Peace and Security Council meeting deciding on Côte d'Ivoire. And the Peace and Security Council was quite adamant. Ouattara is the winner. Whether we send in, even before they send in the high-level panel of 5 heads of state, already the Peace and Security Council decided that Ouattara was the winner. So unless we can finance our own affairs, unless we can pay for ourselves, there's no future for us. AU is a toothless bulldog just being used as a mouthpiece of the imperial powers. That's how France has got its way in Côte d'Ivoire. And you ask the question, where next? I fear for Africa. Mm-hmm. Really, I fear for Africa. Until we are able to put our hands in our own pocket and pay for our daily bread, there's no future for us.
Okay, Tendamrai. Okay, do we have a... No, okay. Brother Bafo, interestingly, all right, okay, we have Brother Kwame. He's back again. He's calling from Ghana. Brother Kwame, let's hope it goes right this time. Tendamrai, my brother. Oh, okay. No, I'm afraid, no, we're not going to... I know Brother Kwame is very, very persistent, and no doubt we will get Brother Kwame back. 0208-180-2523 is the number to call. 07961-573-883. Tendai Mwari.
You are tuned into Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Voice of Africa Radio.
Tonight, my brothers and sisters, Côte d'Ivoire, are we getting the whole story? We got Brother Bafo and Koma, who is our special guest. We also have Brother Leader Mbandaka. Brother Leader, I know you wanted to speak to, want to have a question for Brother Bafo.
Yes, Tendai Mwari. Brother Bafo, can you hear me?
I can hear you faintly. The line appears to be fading out.
Okay. Is that any better? Any better?
Yeah, wee bit.
Okay.
It sounds like you are talking off microphone.
Okay, just a couple of questions I wanted to ask you. You mentioned Blair Compaoré and the president of Burkina Faso.
Yes.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you.
When and how did he become president of Burkina Faso?
We all know that after he killed his friend Sankara,
that's Thomas Sankara.
And he has ever been president, going back to 1989? I've forgotten about the exact year, but
1987.
And
1987.
He has been one of the most protected presidents in Africa. Everything he does, nobody either say, let's take him to the ICC. What everybody is going to the ICC, he is always there. But he plays a very destabilizing role in West Africa, in all the conflicts in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, and now in Côte d'Ivoire. He has had a hand in it.
And when you mentioned Sankara, you're talking about Thomas Sankara.
Well, Thomas Sankara, I mean.
Can you say a little bit about Thomas Sankara?
Thomas Sankara was the leader of the revolution in Burkina Faso, which was then called Upper Volta. And he was quite a firebrand revolutionary. Somehow, Compaoré, who was the number 2 to Sankara, managed to get the man killed. And so he took over from Sankara after his death. And he has been president ever since, a long time ago.
Am I correct in saying that many had seen Thomas Sankara as the reincarnation, as it were, of Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah?
That could be close, but because Sankara did not have the time to prove his worth, it becomes difficult to have that kind of comparison.
Yeah.
But I know that perhaps if he had time...
I meant the potential reincarnation.
Potentially, yes. Potentially, he was in the same mold.
Tendai Mwari. And just one other thing I wanted to ask you to address. You also mentioned Houphouët Boigny, former president of Côte d'Ivoire.
Yes.
You mentioned him in context with Ouattara, and you, of course, certainly Ouattara proudly describes himself as a disciple of Houphouët Boigny. Can you say a little bit about? Can you say a little bit about Houphouët Boigny for us? Please, and in particular, his relationship with the French, with France.
Yeah, Houphouët Boigny allowed himself to be used against Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah because there seemed to be some kind of competition between the two. Remember, Ghana used forever to be the leading producer of cocoa in the world.
Yes,
and Kwame Nkrumah found that we weren't getting our money's worth, so he was bringing silos to put, instead of exporting the raw beans, he wanted to keep them so that he can influence the world price of cocoa.
Mm-hmm.
The French saw through that, so they used Houphouët Boigny to checkmate Nkrumah. What the French did was that we are going to set up huge plantations in Côte d'Ivoire so that we can undercut Nkrumah. And Houphouët, remember, started his political career as an MP, as a deputy in the French National Assembly in Paris. So he was in the pocket of the French from the word go. And he allowed himself to be used. They built up Abidjan like a show city so that the people in Accra could be told, oh, look at Côte d'Ivoire and look at Accra. And now I keep telling myself, Houphouët will be turning his grave while Nkrumah will be sitting down there and saying, Houphouët, I told you so. Houphouët Boigny, again, allowed himself to be used to appoint Ouattara as prime minister, France was threatening to devalue the CFA franc. And Fofo knew that if the CFA was devalued, Côte d'Ivoire was going to lose a lot of money. When it comes to Francophone West Africa, Côte d'Ivoire is keen. Without Côte d'Ivoire, the common currency cannot survive in West Africa.
Yes.
So Fofo knew that if France devalued the CFA, Côte d'Ivoire was going to lose a lot of money. So the negotiating tool was that you appoint Ouattara as prime minister, or we devalue. So Fofo allowed Ouattara to become the prime minister. And also, Fofo knew that Ouattara wasn't wholly an Ivorian. So if he appoints him there, he was going to stop all those Ivorians who were trying to maneuver their way in stopping Fofo's chosen candidate, who was Bédié, to come on.
So my brother, are you suggesting, are you, that the promotion of Ouattara by the French is by way of reviving the legacy of Houphouët-Boigny?
I wouldn't say quite. Perhaps, yeah, Houphouët-Boigny allowed himself to be used by the French against the real interest of his people.
Yeah. Can I just sorry to focus on because I'm going to hand over back to the presenters very quickly, but yeah. I just want to highlight this because I feel it's important by way of historical background. Did Boigny have any role in the toppling of Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah and in supporting the so-called National Liberation Council? And if you could also touch on any involvement he might have had in Southern Africa, the South African regime, Angola, etc.
Houphouët-Boigny, so far as I know, and from the declassified documents from the CIA and all of this, didn't have any direct contribution in the overthrow of Nkrumah as such. But like I said, he allows himself to be used by France to upset Nkrumah's plans to control the world cocoa price. So when he allowed French companies to come and start huge cocoa plantations, that's how Côte d'Ivoire overtook Ghana and became the leading cocoa producer. It meant that Nkrumah's plans to make cocoa being scarce so that he can control the world cocoa price were shot through the window. But as far as Southern Africa is concerned, when other African countries were boycotting South Africa, Houphouët-Boigny had a very good relationship with apartheid South Africa. He used that as a linchpin, where the apartheid regime had access to the Abidjan port and all that. So Fofo didn't actually help the African cause by way of allowing apartheid to succeed, more or less. That one stands as a shame, as a big disgrace for Fofo, because he went all over the place and helped the apartheid regime to survive. Let's also not forget the Casablanca group, which was Nkrumah, Guinea,
yes,
Ghana, Mali.
That's right.
And the Morovia group, which was Tubman and Houphouët-Boigny and the then president of Nigeria, who banded together. And I remember when Charles Taylor's trial in court, Charles Taylor talked about it and said that we, the younger Liberians, felt ashamed of the role that America used the Morovia group to checkmate Nkrumah's group that was really fighting for real African unity. So Fofo did not cover himself with grace. So, and I'm not surprised that Côte d'Ivoire has gone this way.
So that if Ouattara is seeking to fulfill, he described himself as a disciple of Houphouët-Boigny. If he's seeking to fulfill Houphouët-Boigny's legacy, are you suggesting that there is, we should be seriously concerned about the future of Africa?
That's right. You put it so well. When we put puppets in high places like we are doing now in Côte d'Ivoire, we have to be worried. I have covered Zimbabwe very much over the past 10 years, and thank God the nationalists in Zimbabwe have been able to checkmate the puppet that they wanted to put in.
Mm-hmm.
And if Morgan Tsvangirai had his way, it was going to be the same as we are seeing in Côte d'Ivoire. The African interest will not be served. And I just came back from Zimbabwe last month and seeing the joy and of the Africans who got the land, the money that they are getting out of the land, the improvements that they are doing to their lives, their family, and their country. If you give Zimbabwe another 10 years, it's going to be a wonderful place. But if the puppet had been put in, it would have been a reversal of the African interest. The same thing is going to happen in Côte d'Ivoire under Ouattara. So, yeah, we have to be concerned. You put it right. We Africans have to be concerned.
Okay. Give thanks and praises, brother leader, for your contributions to Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. Tendamrai.
You are tuned into Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Voice of Africa Radio.
Tendamrai, brothers and sisters, you're tuned to Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Voice of Africa Radio. Subject matter this evening, Côte d'Ivoire, are we getting the whole story? We've been informed, enlightened and uplifted by Brother Bafo Nkoma. Shame we didn't get to hear you on the BBC dealing with those people, and it was a live program, so we're not going to see that one again. That's going to be in the BBC archives. I don't think that's going to be on the iPlayer, unfortunately, Brother Bafo, and unless you got somebody to take their own recording.
Yeah, radio program live.
What's that?
Hello.
Okay. All right, brother Bafo. First of all, we got to really thank you for enlightening us this evening, because a lot of our people were not really aware of what is actually taking place, and we also have a letter that we're going to read a little bit later on from Senator U.S. Senator James M. in Hoffe. So we read that shortly. But before we do that, my brother, we'd like to. If you can sort of just encapsulate and what you've said this evening, because we're coming to the close now, so we can have your closing comments, please. By the way, brothers and sisters, the lines are still open: 0208 180 2523, 07961 573 883, or text us on 07904899 195. Oh, no, we can't. No, you can't. You can only text us on 07961 573 883. And you can email us, though, on studio@voiceofafrica.radio. Brother Bafo, the floor is open.
My closing remarks, it's simple. What has happened in Côte d'Ivoire is simply France trying to safeguard the Colonial Pact. I think at the top of the program, you defined what the Colonial Pact was. This was an agreement that the government of France, then under Charles de Gaulle, signed with all the colonies that were becoming independent. It was only Guinea under Sékou Touré that decided that we can't become second-class citizens in our own country, so they didn't sign the Colonial Pact. And as a result, France became so angry that they pulled everything for Guinea, even including school desks. They uprooted the rail lines. This same France that is so much concerned with human rights in Côte d'Ivoire, they took every damn thing away from Guinea, and that is why Guinea is so poor these days. They took even school blackboards, they took it from the wall. So that's all the Colonial Pact. France does not want Gbagbo to become president or continue to be president because they want to safeguard the Colonial Pact. What has happened there is not just because the French love the Africans so much that they want so-called democracy in Côte d'Ivoire. They want to put their puppet in Abidjan, who will safeguard French interests and safeguard the interests of the Colonial Pact. So Africans should be aware. We have to open our eyes. What happened in DR Congo in 1960 when they killed Lumumba and they put in Mobutu? It's what they are doing again in Côte d'Ivoire. So we have to open our eyes, be concerned with what is going on. And for me personally, I am looking at Iraq. If we don't take care, we are going to have an Iraq situation in Abidjan, in Côte d'Ivoire.
All right. Okay. Now, is the Côte d'Ivoire crisis a precursor to the intervention elsewhere in Africa, perhaps? I mean, we've spoken about Zimbabwe and the developments that are taking place. but Zimbabwe is on the radar, for example.
Yeah, Zimbabwe is not off the radar yet, but they'll be foolish to do what they have done in Côte d'Ivoire in Zimbabwe, because yes, but we shouldn't even rule out, because Botswana was going to offer itself as a landing base for them to do what they have done in Côte d'Ivoire. They could as well send their ships to berth off Mozambique and start shooting their missiles from that side up. So we can't rule it out totally. But I think the West, Zimbabwe has come out of the West situation. Now things have stabilized. They should build on it. When I went there, I came back last month. They are talking about having elections later this year. And I only hope that it goes well in Zimbabwe, because the Africans there are doing wonderful things. I told myself, over there, I said African universities should do PhD courses in Zimbabwe, studying what has happened there.
Right.
It is going to change the course of Africa if Zimbabwe succeeds. And we shouldn't let the imperial forces to reverse the gains in Zimbabwe. Africans must open their eyes.
Right. Well, we finished on a positive note, and we really, as I said, my brother, we give thanks for enlightening us this evening, enlightening the airwaves, enlightening the African world community. We give thanks and praises. And the New African Magazine, how can we get hold of the New African Magazine?
We are distributed in the UK mainly through the W.H. Smith outlet. And also, you can get it directly from us. If you send in your subscription forms, we can send it directly into your homes every month.
Okay. Is there like an online? Is it? We just Google.
Yes, we do have an online version, that you can also subscribe to. But if you want the hard copy, the fresh ones in your hands, you can also subscribe to us or pop it into the W.H. Smith.
Okay.
And here in the UK, if you go there, you really have to search for it, because they always hide us behind everybody else. The economists everywhere. Yeah, so you really have to search for it.
Even though they're supposed to be making money from selling it, they hide that.
It's been a hard struggle. But people who are passing in through Victoria or Charing Cross, we are always there. But make sure you have some time to search for it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Brother Bafo, for being part of our program this evening, a very influential and important part of our program this evening.
You're welcome.
Give thanks and
You're
praise.
welcome.
Okay, brothers and sisters, just before we close, by the way, the numbers to call 0208-180-2523, 07961-573-883. Okay, right. Let me get this letter out. And this is from this is to Hillary Clinton from James Imofe, who is a senator, and he says as follows. He's writing to Hillary Clinton. Dear Madam Secretary, I write to you again regarding my grave concerns over the conduct of the second round of voting in the presidential election held in Côte d'Ivoire last November the 28th, 2010. I also write to inform you that a new presidential election should be held in Côte d'Ivoire. This is the only way to prevent further bloodshed, stop a civil war, and ensure a truly free and fair election. As I stated in my letter of the 9th of February 2011, Côte d'Ivoire's Independent Electoral Commission, which we were speaking about earlier on, announced the results of their counting of presidential ballots and declared Alassane Ouattara the winner. Under the Constitution of Côte d'Ivoire, however, it is the Constitutional Council of Côte d'Ivoire and not the Electoral Commission which certifies and declares the winner of presidential elections. In addition, the Electoral Commission announced the final vote tallies almost 16 hours after its constitutionally mandated time to report such result. This most important election phase was not carried out in accordance with the constitution of this country. A second troubling aspect of this second round of voting is the credible allegations of massive voter fraud amounting to several 100,000 votes in the rebel-held north of Côte d'Ivoire. I received evidence, repeat, evidence of these allegations and sent it to you in my earlier letter, but have yet, interestingly, yet to receive a reply. The evidence includes tallies of precincts where in the first round of voting, President Laurent Gbagbo received several thousand votes, but in the second round, he received 0 votes. This prima facie evidence of large-scale voter fraud I found very troubling. In the 57 days since my last letter, I have spoken with numerous officials on the ground during last year's presidential election. This includes African leaders I met with during my trip to this region last month. I have also obtained new evidence of massive voter fraud in the rebel-held north. Specifically, one exhibit, which he encloses, and we have copies here, is a copy of an official regional electoral return document from the Electoral Commission. It shows Ouattara receiving a total of 149,598 from 5 northern cities. But when the total is officially reported, the amount in the total column Ouattara receives is 244,471, a difference of 94,873 votes. Somebody's not adding up properly. I have been a frequent traveler to Africa for the past 15 years, and he talks about his credentials, and he says, from all the evidence I have now gathered, I am convinced that it is mathematically impossible for President Gbagbo to have lost the election by several hundred thousand votes. And if a similar amount of fraud exists in the other 4 regions of the rebel-held north, Gbagbo is actually the winner of the presidential election. The hundreds of thousands of potential fraudulent ballots combined with the unconstitutional method in which the votes were tallied and announced by the Independent Electoral Commission leads me to conclude that the election was not free and fair. I also conclude that a new presidential election should be held under international sanction and supervision to ensure a free and fair election. I am aware that my position is different from that of the Obama administration, which has recognized Alassane Ouattara as the winner. I ask, however, that you change your position in light of the evidence I have provided, and that you call for a new election. Such a change would not be viewed as inconsistent, but a wise re-evaluation in light of new evidence presented. So he's offering them a way out. It is also consistent with our American... Okay, well, I'll leave that. I recommend that the new election be supervised by internationally sanctioned organizations like the African Union, and a number of other organizations are mentioned. He says, I am convinced that only through a new election will the people of Côte d'Ivoire end the increasing bloodshed, stop another civil war, and ensure free and fair elections. And that is a U.S. senator. Tendamwari, we have TomTom ask, okay, right, Brother TomTom asked for a repeat of the BBC interview details. Okay, well, it's going to probably have to go online, but it was a live program. It was BBC News 24, and because that is a rolling news program, I very much doubt if that they're going to put it on the iPlayer. You can try the iPlayer, but I'm not too sure if the BBC News 24 interview, but it's worth checking out. It's certainly worth checking out. Okay, Tendamwari. So, brothers and sisters, you've heard it there from the US senator. Right. Now I'm going to go numbers to call 0208-180-2523 if you want to make any further comments on that, brothers and sisters. 07961-573-883. You know, President Obama, his only contribution, well, apart from basically telling Laurent Gbagbo to leave the country, apparently he previously he said that he can actually have a job in America as a professor. He was offering Gbagbo a job as a professor in an American university. So, you know, it's like he's doing him a favor. But yet this senator claims clearly that the votes were rigged and he actually won the election. So he was obviously holding on and saying that as far as he was concerned, the election, he won the election, and certainly there should be a rerun. So, brothers and sisters, the numbers to call 0208 180 961 573 883. Okay. What do you think about this letter, brothers and sisters? This is surely more evidence that, something doesn't smell too right here, brothers and sisters. Tendai Mwari. Okay, now we're going to have some closing comments from our spiritual leader, Brother Leader Mbandaka. Brother Leader, it's been quite an enlightening program this evening. And I also know that you want to give us some information about the National African People's Parliament as well. We have a caller? Okay, we have a caller. Tendai Mwari caller, you're live on Voice of Africa Radio. And your number is... That's 052. Tendai Mwari, Brother Kwame. Yes, it is. I'm giving thanks and praises, my brother.
No problem. And hello to Brother Leader Mbandaka.
Tendai Mwari, greetings, my brother.
Good to hear your voice. Well, my brothers, as far as I'm concerned, that you and I should know that the West will never stop poking their nose in our business because that is their nature, right? We know that, Ouattara, even if he wins, he's not going to benefit our brothers and sisters in the whole of Ivory Coast. He's only for the North. And as for Gbagbo, he lost. But we know perfectly clear, my brothers and sisters, that the West are nosy. And nosy, they're notorious, and they will never stop meddling with African people. And we as sons and daughters, as African people, are the only ones who can stop them because they don't come into Africa as show love amongst us. They are about greed and evil. Before I finish, Brother Omwali, I agree. I totally agree that when we have an African National Parliament, we can discuss how we can stop these beasts interfering with Africa. Enough is enough.
Tendai Mwari, give thanks, my brother. That's Brother Kwame Obwaje, a regular caller of Voice of Africa Radio. Tendai Mwari. Okay, now we're going to hear a few closing comments from Brother Leader and also about the National African People's Parliament. Tendai Mwari, Brother Leader.
Tendai Mwari, first of all, I want to give thanks and praises unto Mwari and Mudim Mukuru, God and the ancestors for this powerful program that we've been able to put on this evening for the African world community. And I want to particularly give thanks to the Creator and the ancestors for that beautiful and, erudite,
valuable,
and extremely valuable investigative journalist, our brother Bafo Ankoma. He is invaluable to the African world. And the information that he has given us this evening is absolutely vital. And I hope that we understand the seriousness of what faces us as an African people, that African sovereignty has been reduced in the world today to a joke. And that I hope that in context, we can also see and appreciate the value of Zimbabwe as it stands presently under the presidency and the governance of President Mugabe, Robert Mugabe, and ZANU-PF as it stands at the moment. I hope that brothers and sisters understand that an attack on African sovereignty anywhere is an assault on African humanity everywhere. And so every single African who is listening to this program today, every single African who has been rightly following the events on the African continent, should feel that our humanity as African people, whether Africans from the African continent or Africans from the diaspora, that we should recognize that our African humanity has once again been invaded, has been assaulted, and has been degraded. And so we as Africans must organize from wherever we are, in whatever organization we belong to, in our families, in our communities, in our groups and organizations, to make strong representation to whether it's to our MPs, to the House of Parliament, to African or black MPs in this country to let our voice be heard as African people. Let them know that we have a position on this issue and that we are totally in condemnation of the action of the French, the action of the United Nations, and the action of the global white supremacist power structure. Let us be clear about the role of the United Nations since it came into being in after the Second World War in the mid-1940s, I think 1945, that it came into being. That its role in Africa and in the African world has always been one of providing cover for Euro-American imperialism to impose and invade and undermine African sovereignty. We saw it in the Congo in the 1960s. The role that the UN played in the murder of Patrice Lumumba and the toppling of his revolutionary government in the Congo in 1960, between 1960 and 1961. We saw the role, and it worries me that some of the antics that we saw in the Congo all those years ago, 51, I believe, years ago, 50 to 51 years ago, we are seeing those antics today in Gabon. The arrest, sorry, not Gabon, in Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast. The arrest of Gbagbo as the president. And the news that he is now in the security of the United Nations. He's now in the protection of the United Nations. Isn't that what we were told 50 years ago in relation to Patrice Lumumba? And all the United Nations was doing is providing cover for American imperialism, for Belgian imperialism, for British imperialism. France was also involved in the destabilizing of the Congo during that time. So we have to be very, very clear. There are many, many other examples that could be cited. But let's bring it up to the very present and what's happening in Haiti. Haiti, the first African nation to have established its sovereignty, to have abolished slavery. The enslaved Africans actually fought against slavery with the Haitian Revolution, ended slavery, and established for themselves a government of the people, by the people. And today we see, after 200 years of imposition, threats of invasion and actual invasion by the French, backed up by the Americans, the USA, and by the USA itself. We know of the invasion, for instance, of 1915 to 1934, when the US actually occupied Haiti. And we know that Haiti has never been forgiven for freeing itself in 1884, and the European world, which refused to recognize Haiti as a sovereign nation, and who pledged that Haiti would never be able to establish itself as a credible or a legitimate sovereign nation, are today still engaged in a conspiracy to destroy and to undermine Haiti's sovereignty and the humanity of African people in Haiti. And we see that ongoing invasion and infiltration and domination and destabilization that's going on in Haiti. And the UN is presently providing cover for the US to carry out its inimical acts in Haiti, even now as we speak. Let us be warned. And let us be advised that the United Nations has been responsible, along with the USA and America, backed up by Britain and Canada, etc., for the killing of over 5,000 of our brothers and sisters in Haiti since 2004, when the US kidnapped and took and spirited the president of the country out of his own home. Let's be clear about that. Since then, just you imagine, a populist, legitimate president was taken out of his own home by the USA and out of his country by the USA and deposited in the Central African Republic, which was under the domination and the control of a recent coup, which was backed up and propped up by France. Mm-hmm. And it took a U.S. Congresswoman, Maxine Waters, along with a so-called African American U.S. Congresswoman, and a so-called African American barrister, lawyer, and a Jamaican MP to travel to the Central African Republic to rescue Aristide, the president of Haiti, and his wife, and take them to the Caribbean first of all. And they were told they could not stay in the Caribbean, and they had to then take them to South Africa, where Mbeki offered asylum to the president, who had committed no crimes, who had done no wrong. His only crime was that he was moved by the will of the people to establish a government of the people for the people, and to start talking about nationalizing the resources of Haiti so that the resources could be channeled to meet the needs of the people. He immediately doubled the minimum wages, for example. He started a land distribution program. Yeah? He started a war on poverty in Haiti. And he also demanded reparation from France for money that France had stolen from Haiti in 1825, which took by imposing with the threat of military invasion backed by the USA in 1825, demanding payment of 90 million to 150 million gold francs for lost property because of the Haitian Revolution. Because we fought to free ourselves, we must now pay. And what was this lost property? The land of Haiti and the people who had freed themselves from slavery. So the so-called slaves were supposed to have been property of France, and the land was supposed to be property of France, and they demanded with the threat of invasion. And it took Haiti over 100 years. In fact, it took them from 1825 to 1947 to pay France this money, which Aristide in 2003 demanded that France paid back with interest, and calculated that in today's currency at the sum of 21 billion US dollars. And as a result of that, the invasion came in February 2004 of America, and the removal of Aristide. So, and the United Nations have provided cover for this. So the United Nations has never been a friend or a just arbitrator in the affairs and the business of Africa and African people anywhere in the world and anywhere on the planet. And we see the role that the UN is playing now in Libya. Again, we know that we have an Arab expansionist regime in Libya, but we know that the answer to the Arab expansionist regime in Libya is not the imposition of European imperialism. And we're clear about that. And we know that with Gbagbo and Ouattara, we know that both of them have been compromised in their politics. We know that both have been compromised. However, we also know that Gbagbo obviously upset the French by joining in with people like President Wade of Senegal, who demanded, Brother Bafo talked about the foreign exchange reserves, which the Francophone countries of West Africa are forced to yield 65% of their foreign exchange reserve to the French treasury. And in 2007, President Wade of Senegal demanded that this money was paid back. It's worth billions, thousands of billions of francs, which he has demanded back, and which France has refused to yield. And we know Gbagbo has supported that demand. So we know that Gbagbo has done something to upset the French, something that would be in the interest of our people, because the forces of global white supremacy are only ever interested in democracy and removing so-called dictators when those dictators are dictating in the interest of African people and African well-being. If those dictators are dictating and killing and maiming and massacring and murdering African people, as in the case of Mobutu and Bokassa and Yufet Wani, if they are murdering and robbing and extorting our people in the interest of global white supremacy, Euro-American imperialism, then they can live forever and they can rule forever. So let us be clear about what it is that we're dealing with as African people. I pray, Africans, that we unite, that we do not allow ourselves to be divided. I pray that our brothers and sisters in Ivory Coast, in Côte d'Ivoire, the people on the ground now, I pray that our people will wake up to the reality of our own African interests and our own African needs and pull together as an African people. I pray that all Africans in Africa, West Africa, will recognize that this is not just an attack on Côte d'Ivoire, but an attack on Africa and all African people. I pray that all Africans everywhere in the world will recognize that this is an attack on all African people. Tendai Mwari. And I want to encourage us all to attend the meeting that was announced earlier on, the meeting on the 30th of April, where we will be reviewing the Black People's Day of Action, the positive achievements from that day, the lessons and the challenges, and we will also be looking at the National African People's Parliament that we are now moving towards establishing so that we can have a legitimate, representative, and powerful voice of African people that will be a force for the empowerment and the development of African communities, and that will also be a force to address all the social injustices and social inequalities that we are experiencing as a nation, as a people. I'd like to close with the words of the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Mosiah Garvey, which we will find on the as the 19th affirmation in our book, the Mosiah Daily Affirmation. He says, and we entitle it African Race Purity. He says, insist on a campaign of race purity. That is doing everything moral and social within the race. Close ranks against all other races. It is a disgrace to mix your race with other races. These are the words of Papa Garvey, not the words of the Voice of Africa radio. It is a disgrace, to split up the race is unwholesome and does not tend to morally dignify the race. He says, it will be a beautiful thing. Let me read from here. Never allow any other race to preside over your affairs. They must never have executive control over your affairs, because they will always say and do things to suit themselves and against your interests. Though they profess the greatest friendship, if they swear on the Bible, don't believe them. If they swear in God, don't believe them. Their interests can never be yours, whether they be Europeans, Asiatic, Jews, or whatever. And what Papa Garvey is saying to us very clearly, he's not preaching race hatred. He's not preaching racism. He's saying, look around the world and you will see that other nations and people are organized on the basis of their own kindredship. In other words, their own race. You see the Europeans seeking to empower Europe and Europeans around the world. The Arabs are seeking to do the same. The Chinese are seeking to do the same. The Asians are seeking, or the Indians are seeking to do the same. He's saying we must take a good look at ourselves, Africans, and we must recognize that we have to organize around our own kindredship, that we have certain experiences that is based on our own kindredship and our own history as a people, and we must organize for the protection of our people on the planet. So let us unite, in the words of Papa Garvey. Organize now or perish. In his immortal words, rise, you mighty African people, for you can accomplish whatever you will. Rumbidzo kuna mwari ye Africa, to the God of Africa be the glory. Tendai mwari.
Tendai mwari, brother leader. Okay. Tendai mwari. Right. Tendai mwari, brother leader. Okay, just want to give thanks and praises, brother leader, for that contribution and your contribution throughout this program. Punctuated and, worked well in terms of the combination of yourself and Brother Bafo and Koma, enlightening our listeners this evening with words of wisdom and inspiration.
Tenamari, can I make one more point? Mm-hmm. Sorry, Tenamari. I just wanted to highlight this letter that was written by a senator, a U.S. senator, which would be equivalent to a government minister in this country. No less. Who was written...
He's a member of the Oklahoma House of Representatives.
Right. So he'll be like a cabinet minister in this country. And he has written to the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, stating that he has actually been to Côte d'Ivoire. And he has witnessed in Côte d'Ivoire the corruption of the electoral process, which the Constitutional Council found. And the Constitutional Council, which is like the...
but that's sovereign. The council is sovereign.
Exactly. It's the highest legal body
that's right.
in the country. They are responsible for ensuring the preservation and the enactment of the Constitution in the country. And they declared Gbagbo the winner. So that the international community should be supporting the decision of the Constitutional Council. But in addition to that, you have an American senator who traveled to the country and witnessed for himself and had his concerns and wrote to Hillary Clinton to show you how disingenuous and how insidious and sinister these people are. And I want to highlight with that the role of our good friend and so-called brother,
our brother, Barack
Obama, because Barack Obama would be aware of this, you see. But Barack Obama is playing ball with the forces of global white supremacy to justify and to legitimize this attack and this assault on the African continent. And we said it on this program when he was, even before he was elected, that he was nothing but an intended blackface, the blackface of American imperialism and global white supremacy, otherwise known as the New World Order. He's there to lead the ushering in of the New World Order, which is Euro-American global domination. So let's be clear about that, the role of Barack Obama.
Can I just remind our listeners as well, Tendai Murray, that one of the things you also said, brother leader, was the intensification on Mama Africa as well. So having an African leader is there to intensify the program of, as you put it, global white supremacy on Africa. And so said...
we can see that being acted out now. We can see that being played out now. And we said it, that this means that they have a vicious and insidious agenda and plan for Africa. And so they put a man with African blood and with African features up front. I say that because he doesn't have an African mind and he doesn't have an African heart. And they put him up front to justify and to legitimize and to add credibility to the global white supremacist assault on the African continent, because whoever controls, I say it again, I said it on this program many times, whoever controls Africa rules the world. Whoever controls Africa rules the world. The US is now in control of the African continent, and the US has no intention of letting go that control so that China can become the #1 superpower or anyone else in the world. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari, lots of oil in Côte d'Ivoire as well. Tendai Mwari, brothers and sisters. Okay, that's it for this evening, brothers and sisters. And this has been Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Voice of Africa Radio. We want to give thanks and praises to Mwari Nyakusika, God, the creator of the universe, through the spirits of Mzumukuru, our great ancestor. Thanks and praises goes out to our spiritual leader and guest this evening, Brother Leader Mbandaka. Thanks goes out to Brother Space Clotty for Voice of Africa Radio. Giving thanks and praises also to our brother Olatunji Heru, who is, not only is he the editor-in-chief of the Whirlwind newspaper. By the way, brothers and sisters, have you got your copy of the Whirlwind newspaper? Edition number 9 is out at all good outlets, all good African-owned businesses, African-owned outlets, brothers and sisters. You can come to 282 High Road, Leighton Mama Africa Culture Shop to get yours. Also, brothers and sisters, want to give thanks to Brother Bafo Nkoma for his tremendous effort in bringing the truth to us this evening. Giving thanks to my co-host, Sister Kaya Wakadao Mbandaka, and also our technical team, Brother Kamau Busa, along with Brother Asante. Brothers and sisters, want to give thanks, praises to you who called in, who texted in, who emailed in, and also to all you silent listeners. This has been Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan, Voice of Africa Radio. Join us next week between 8 and 10, where we talk it straight and make it plain. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari, brothers and sisters. Just to let you know that next week, we will be going on to 11 o'clock again, and we want to give thanks to Brother Ezra, who has awarded us this time to deal with such very, very important issues. So we say tender to Brother Ezra of down south. Also, log this in your diaries, brothers and sisters. The 28th of May is Africa Liberation Day, celebrated. Well, the 28th of May is when Voice of Africa Radio will be celebrating Africa Liberation Day. The 25th of May is Africa Liberation Day. But I want you to log the 28th in your diaries, in your phones, and we'll be updating you more onto what will be taking place, who will be there, but I know that you will. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari, yes, a very important date in your calendar, brothers and sisters. Voice of Africa are going to be doing some stuff for you, brothers and sisters. Edutainment and upliftment from Voice of Africa Radio. Give thanks and praises for your contributions this evening, brothers and sisters, and also, as we said, all you silent listeners. Tendai Mwari.